Arlo podcast, brought to you by All American Ford in Aniana, Alabama. Stop by and see John Makovica and his team today.
Everybody needs to go see John. That's our great sponsor. If you're into Jeep, you're a Jeep guy.
Yes, I am.
So in studio today we got John, not John Makovica, but John, and longtime law enforcement, I believe. Very different facets from patrol officer to training officer to SWAT. And you know, we brought you on. You have more facets to you than that. You're into science. You're into theory. Would you say that you're in religion? We try to stay away from religion and politics, but you mix your science and religion a little bit together. I believe, I may be mistaken on that, but I believe you mix that.
I like to study ancient spiritual mysteries.
Okay.
I believe in spiritualism, but in a secular form.
Okay. Well, we're going to go deep with that. We'll start off with law enforcement. We like to Dave and I like to back the boys in blue. We have a lot of friends that are in law enforcement. We give you guys a hard time sometimes. Like to poke fun at you a little bit. At least I do. I got some law enforcement friends I like to rib a little bit and give them a hard
we deserve it.
That's right. But give us a little quick history. You don't have to go into great detail, but what got you into law enforcement?
Well, that's a very deep question. So, growing up, I was always, believe it or not, it was martial arts I did.
Okay.
And just the I guess the warrior mentality and the mentality of good versus evil to a degree. Mm-hmm. Although, we think that as a child, and as we come up, we kind of get a different look at the angles of things. But ultimately, I do think that most law enforcement does confront, evil doings on a daily basis, and they're there to help good people and keep civility. So as I was growing up, I got involved in martial arts at a young age. I think I was around 14, and so that kind of helped build me up as far as being able to be confident to confront people. Although I will say this, because of your jiu-jitsu background, you will understand this. I did have a false sense of my self-defense skills until I started jiu-jitsu, right, and learned real quick what I was lacking.
Oh, okay.
So, but and then that changed everything. But as I was growing up and learning these arts and getting more familiar with them, I knew probably sometime in high school that after high school, I wanted to go into the military. And here's something, this will be an interesting story for you right here, because there's a reason why I did not go in the military.
Oh, okay.
So I graduated high school, and I went to go try to sign up to go into the Navy. And I had terrible nearsighted vision. I was incredibly nearsighted and tried to wear contacts, but my contacts was always making my eyes infected and so forth. So I go and go through the testing and this and that, and they're nitpicking things because they were very stringent, more so I think a little bit back then. And they're like, you have color vision deficiency.
Really?
Color blindness. And I was like, well, how bad? Well, they're like, it's not as bad as we've seen. You just have some deficiencies, but it's going to disqualify you for this and this and this. And
I ran into that.
Yeah, so I was like, okay,
Of course, they didn't tell me till it was late. Piss you off.
Yeah. So I ended up not signing up because there was things I couldn't do, a lot of things I couldn't do, and it kind of hindered me from going. So I didn't sign up for the military, and I kind of regret it still.
So colorblind, you can't go to the military.
No, that's not true. It restricts you from certain career paths.
Uh-huh.
Yes, that's exactly it. And I didn't fully understand that at my age either. I was, they made me sound like I was handicapped or something. But so anyway, I didn't sign up.
Which is, most people don't know, the Navy is probably one of the, if not, it may be the worst stringent on some of their qualifications on getting in.
Yeah.
Compared to some of the other branches.
Yeah, that's true. So I believe so anyway. But so I ended up working construction jobs, and then got a really good job making really good money later on down the line. And almost 14 years into police work now, I am just making what I made when I left.
Holy shit.
My job prior police work.
Is that some of the anger issues?
Yeah, that's part of my anger issue. No,
no wonder a police officer pissed off all the time.
That's why, man. No, it's but so anyway, I ended up. It's interesting because when I was going through the police work, trying to get hired on, which is a huge process, a long, lengthy process to do it, I was thinking that my color vision issues were going to crop up, and somehow I skirted through all of it. Nobody even caught it at all, and so there wasn't a problem.
I don't think a lot of people know how much things you have to jump through to become a police officer.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of. It seems like everyone I've talked to. Of course, I'm not a police officer, never been one, but it seems like there's a lot that you guys have to go through besides just the written test.
Massive.
And it's like check this, check that, and I think that's one of the things that frustrates me when people get upset with law enforcement and they start yelling, we need to hire more, we need to hire more. I'm not saying that we should lower the the standards of getting in or doing whatever, but it does seem like a long ass process. How are you going to get people in when it takes, and I'm going to guess here, and I mess this up, but I mean bare minimum 6 months, right?
Most of the time, that's probably the average, if not longer.
Right, and I'm just saying, just
right.
On an
it's
average.
Definitely average. Sometimes it can be up to a year.
Yeah,
and really depending on, if you're talking about until you're on the street by yourself, it is a year. So because you're on probation even after the academy when you're riding around with a FTO, a field training officer,
right,
in a car, and he's checking all your work and making sure and actually teaching you a lot more. Once you're out of the academy.
Yeah, hands
on. And you've been doing it for how long?
I'm going on my 14th year.
Okay.
So
let me ask you, so right now, the big thing that you see on social media is people are videotaping you guys on the regular. Well,
constantly.
Yeah, and they're challenging you, and I see it all the time. A guy will have his window rolled up, and he'll just hold his license against the window,
right.
And they'll be very confrontational. I mean, so let's go ahead and get clarification on that. And you may or may not be an officer that pulls people over for speeding tickets, but let's go ahead and get clarification, because people say all the time, I don't have to roll my window down. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. What is the clear law on that?
Or is it a municipality thing? Is it
right.
Is it like a state? It may be a state for state. We may
right.
There are some differences state to state, and there are some case laws that do address some of that. Here in this state, there is some discussion about, and we just actually talked about this not too long ago, about getting someone out of the car because we want to talk to them outside the car alone.
Even for a speeding ticket or
yes.
whatever.
Now, here's the thing. Supposedly there are cases, there is a case law, or maybe a little bit more than that. I have not reviewed them that says that officers can do that. But I'm telling you how I operate and how, as a field training officer, that I would teach my guys to operate. We would not do that. Now, if you have reasonable suspicion or probable cause, to get them out of the vehicle to do further investigation, then that's something else. If I'm walking up on the car and I'm seeing track marks on their arms, they're acting weird, that type of thing, then yes, I probably need to get them out of the car to make sure they're okay to drive the car.
Sure.
If they are just angry, because a lot of people get angry when you're stopped by the police,
Well, their adrenaline shoots up, blood pressure, I get it.
Yeah, maybe they cracked their window this far. Maybe they did just show their driver's license up against the window. I have no problem with that. I will not get them out of the car for that. That is me.
Well, what about a lot of officers, if they take your license, they go back to the car to run whatever. I can see where that would aggravate a law enforcement officer.
Well, it's definitely not going to help.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Jesus, man. I mean, because I got to take a picture of it now, or I got to call it out over the thing.
We'll usually write it down. I mean, I'm so used to getting names and date of births because people don't have their driver's license on them, which is, that's a
really,
oh yeah, all the time,
all the time.
It's every single day. Which I'm not on patrol right now. I'm in a training.
But it seems
environment, but-
standard to have your license on.
That's
the
because-
basic.
We're intelligent citizens, but the massive amount of people
Depends
out
on who
here.
you talk to about me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm telling you, it is a lot of chaos out there, more so than the average citizen realizes, as far as the lack of civility, the lack of respect, the lack of having your things in order, like our driver's license, insurance. You know,
Well, let me hit on that because it's probably been, I'm gonna say a couple months,
Mhm.
at least 3 or 4. I got pulled over.
Mhm.
It's been a while since I've been pulled over, and it was late, and I get it. And so I'm coming off the interstate, and you know when you've been driving on the interstate for a while, you're kind of used to that interstate speed a little
Mhm.
bit. And as soon as I got off the interstate, you know I'm looking, or you know merging into the lane, I'm trucking down through there, and I was going faster than the speed limit.
Mhm.
No problem, not an issue at all. Man, local officer got me. I was like, well, fuck, he got me. I mean, and it was like 2:00, 2:30 in the morning. I mean, fair hit.
Right.
He was hit beautifully, by the way. I'm gonna give him credit because he had
Oh,
he
they
had a
know
nice-
some hiding spots.
yeah, he had a beautiful spot. As soon as the lights went off, I was like, damn it. So I pull over. No big deal, but I always have all my stuff in order. I have, you know, obviously I keep my driver's license on me, my insurance, registration, all that stuff is in a in a thing that's given to me by my insurance company.
That's awesome.
You know, you just keep it all together, bam, right there in your center console,
Right.
no issue. So, boom, he walks up, does this and does that. Well, there's a couple of things. I'll get your reaction on this, and this will be a nice raw reaction.
Right.
First of all, there are times that I can be a dick, and not because
No, I was like,
Like I've known you long enough. To...
First thing that drives me insane is, and I know it's a script. You guys, hey, he comes up, I hand him my stuff. I'm, you know, completely sober, don't drink, you know, sitting there, especially driving. So I hand him the stuff, and he goes, "Where are you coming from?" I said, "West," because I was heading east.
what does that matter?
And
I
that's
mean,
what
really?
and I'm thinking, motherfucker, you just saw me get off the interstate. You know I'm getting off the interstate. You know, and that's the kind of shit that runs
Yeah.
through my mind. And and he just kind of looked at me, you know, the whole dog head tilt kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, West. and, and so he runs the whole thing, and he was cool. You know, obviously he went back to his car and he ran, make sure I wasn't, you know,
Right.
some wanted guy or whatever. And I'm sitting there, and I also, and this is what I do. Everybody does things different. As a courtesy, because I have a crew cab truck,
Oh yeah.
and my back windows are tinted. When I get pulled over, if I get pulled over at night, which hasn't happened that much in that truck, I mean, like I said, that's the first time I've been pulled over in a while.
Right.
I roll my back windows down,
Oh yeah.
and so it's just natural. I just reach over and I hit
That
all
is
4,
Much appreciated.
and I turn my
Tell you
interior,
that.
and I reach up and I hit my interior light on, and it's just, to me, it's common sense.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because when he comes up, I want him to be comfortable,
Exactly.
so that I'm comfortable. You
And
know,
everybody's coming.
everybody's fine. I mean, I wasn't, you know, no big deal. So so when I get pulled over, before I was rolling windows down before I even got pulled over, you know, before
Yeah.
I even got stopped.
That's the way I do.
And I just, and then I get my stuff, and I hit the interior light, and I start getting my stuff. But what aggravated me, and I looked at him, and I think this guy hadn't been looked at this in a long time because his reaction. He goes through the whole song and dance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he hands me my stuff back,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm like, okay, we're done. And he goes, Mr. Bolin, he goes, have you been drinking tonight? And I'm like, and I look at him like, what? He goes, and this tweaked my nipples a little bit. He goes, well, you know, sometimes we smell smells. And I just looked at him like, what the fuck are you talking about? And because here's my thought. First of all, if you thought I was drinking, you wouldn't hand my shit back.
Exactly.
Okay.
He was fishing.
He was fishing.
Oh no. Well,
And I looked at him, and I was like, come on, man. I said, you smell smells? What do you smell? And he goes, well, you know, just sometimes, and it's caught him off guard because the look on my face,
Lavender? What is it?
yeah, probably went from okay, we're cool to the look of disgust. And apparently
Right.
I have a very good look of disgust face.
I think you probably do.
And so, and I was just thinking like, come on, man. I did all these things,
Right.
right? I did all these things for you, but it turns out, and I'm not going to name any municipality, but apparently this cat is got awards and all kind of shit. I guess he gets
For DUI?
for DUIs. He gets a lot of DUIs. It's like his apparent because me, I started digging around asking questions.
Right.
So apparently that's his MO is he loves because he does late night shift. He loves giving like mad moms start giving him all these awards and stuff. But I thought,
So after you said, convinced him that you wasn't drinking, they end up just letting you go?
oh
after?
yeah, absolutely. He's like, oh, okay.
Couple things with that though. Two things. Now, fishing is part of the traffic stop because they're investigatory stops. You're investigating. It could, even if it's just for speeding,
Mhm.
you're still investigating because you want to make sure nothing else is going on. Because so many times, and it's hard for people to fathom that doesn't make traffic stops every day, but it's so many times there's so much more going on. So the job is to fish and make sure everything's on the up and up. But when he said that, sometimes we smell smells,
Mhm.
that is about as ignorant and unprofessional as I've ever heard anything.
Oh, I looked at him like,
And,
are you
I mean,
fucking?
Yeah, that would be. I would not like that, and I would not want any officers that I was teaching or instructing to ever say anything like
Well,
that.
good because
And
I'm giving you.
Think about it though. Think about it in a legal sense. So I got him out, and I told him that sometimes we smell smells, and I'm smelling something. No, you either smell it or you don't.
Right.
Right. That's my whole thing.
You don't say I sort of smell a smell, but what's a smell? It can be anything.
Yeah, sometimes we
Yeah.
smell smells. I was like, I
be
looked
like
at
my-
him. I
My
looked at,
cologne.
yeah.
Not really?
Yeah.
I looked at him like he accidentally hit my truck with his nightstick. I was just like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Well, that's unprofessional, and I would not ever say anything like that. My thing is either
Commit.
I smell
Mm-hmm.
the odor of alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times you're not going to be able to tell the exact brand. A lot of times, some people can.
I smell
But,
Seagram
you
7.
know, this is some Modelo right here going on.
I smell some
But,
balcones right here.
Yeah.
There you go.
Everybody, balcones. Yeah.
But but you either smell alcohol. I need you to step out, sir. I smell alcohol, or not.
Right. And I think that's where some of the angst of the general public get is I honestly think, and this is going to sound full of myself, but I don't think a lot of people know how to communicate with officers. And when they say something stupid, an officer, and this is strictly my opinion, totally my opinion, I think officers was like, well, they're either fucked up or dumb, so I'm going to take it to the next level. They're fishing, so the
Right.
fishing gets a little bit more and more. And I think because of people don't know how to communicate well,
Mm-hmm.
they get frustrated, and then I think things escalate. And I think if the general public was a little bit better at it, just just relax, just answer
Right.
John's questions, and John asked me what I'm doing, and know what's right and wrong. And this leads up to a question of mine. There's no way, or I say there's no way, it would be very difficult for a law enforcement officer to know all the laws.
Mm-hmm.
But if you as a law enforcement officer hit me with, well, such and such basically is against the law, you better damn well make sure as an officer that that's true.
That's exactly right. Well, in my when I was on patrol, I had a patrol bag that kept in the side of my car, and I kept Title 32 and Title 13 in there just for that.
And those are what for the lane
For your traffic laws and
Okay.
for your criminal codes.
Okay.
And there's numerous times I would look them up. There'd be numerous times I knew that a crime was committed, but I needed to make sure the elements of the crime.
Mhm.
So I would take them to jail, until booking or corrections rather, what we were going to probably charge them with, and I'd go back and go look through the elements just to make sure that what happened fit the element of a specific crime in general. So we do go back and look.
With that said, what if it didn't fit? What if you say
Right.
a crime happened obviously if Dave punched me in the mouth and you took him to jail for it, and but
Yeah.
it didn't fit.
Well,
I mean, how does that work?
we can get into all different type of
We don't have to go that deep.
I will give you a perfect example of where I messed up, and I ended up towing a guy, towing his vehicle. I was able to write him a ticket because I did have a proper traffic stop.
For DUI?
No. This you'll see. This is something totally different. But I thought a crime was committed because I stopped the vehicle, and the guy was nice, but was a little off on the head. So, and
Was
I'm
it
like,
me?
no. He was
Just
obviously a little off.
Yeah.
You know, may have been friends with you or
There
something.
you go.
but anyway, so he had a Jefferson County gun belt in his vehicle. Gun had a Jefferson County jacket, with the emblems and the patches.
Oh,
had
shit.
a tag that was just like an airbrush tag with a star on it in his back window. Had a metal badge and a commission card. But it was like a generic looking commission card. Now, I wasn't real familiar with all this. My first year on patrol, and I stopped this guy, and I was like, "What is all of this?" And I was like, "Are you a Jefferson County deputy?" Because I think he had an expired tag, just something simple, And he was nice. I was nice to him, and he was like, "Yes, sir. I'm a deputy." I was like, "Okay." So I was like, I don't know who this guy is. And I happened to have some friends there, and they were like, something's weird about this. So I called Jefferson County, and they were like, "No, we don't have a deputy by that name." I said, "You are a Jefferson County deputy?" "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I do a lot of work for him and do this and that." And I was like, he's impersonating a cop,
Right.
So some other stuff happened, and I ended up taking him in for impersonating a police officer. He had the uniform, most of it, gun belt, a jacket, card, badge,
I see where this is
badge,
going.
everything else. Took him in, towed his vehicle, wrote him a ticket. Got in. My sergeant was like, "Something's not right. Let me look at the code." We started looking at the code. Basically, you could go put my uniform on, tell people you were me, have all my stuff, and walk around this city, and nobody can take you to jail unless you do one thing. And you try to
arrest somebody.
Try to make a police action. It doesn't have to be an arrest. It could be you're controlling traffic.
Oh God.
Or
give a speeding ticket.
But they got a guy in Trustful not too long ago that was driving around in a vehicle that had police stuff on it, and they pulled him over. Something just looked weird about his vehicle, but they ended up arresting him. I think he had a warrant or something. Or no, he was a felon, had a gun, but had all the police stuff.
Yeah.
And he was driving like a Jeep Cherokee that had police stuff all over it. And when they pulled him over, and I'm regurgitating this, I hope I'm regurgitating it right. But
it happens a lot, actually.
And
I've heard numerous things over the years about people like that.
And it's like when the local cops passed him, they were like, "Man, they just don't look right." So they whipped around and ran the tag, had a regular tag on it, but it had all the police stuff, and they pulled him over. And apparently, I think his downfall was the fact that he had a felony and he had a gun.
Yeah. That's a felon with a firearm. Yeah, that's a big no-no.
Yeah. So he got hit on that.
Yep. So, but back to what you were originally talking about. You're talking about you're rolling down your windows, you're being polite, you're turning your interior lights on. I got stopped a few years ago, and had my daughter with me. It was either, I guess it was Morris or Kimberly, whoever out there stopped me. They love to stop people at night, late at night. It was late at night. And, my daughter, 13, 14 at the time. Anyway, so, they're behind me, flipped their lights on. I'm in my Nissan Frontier that I had at the time. And I'm like starting to pull over. I said, "Jenna, watch this." And rolled down my windows, front and back, four-door truck, turned my interior lights on, put my hands on the wheel. I said, "Jenna, put your hands on top of your knees." She put her hands on top of her knees. Officer walks up. I'm like, "Hey, man," introduce myself, tell him I'm sorry for going over the speed limit. I said I'm an officer, told him where I worked, on and on. And it was just as gentle conversation as possible.
Did he run your license?
Yeah, I think he made sure I was, he ran it and made sure.
Well, let me ask you that, and I only bring this up because you brought it up, is, I hear people bitch about the courtesy that officers get compared to other people. And obviously, that woman that was it Massachusetts or whatever, where she was a state trooper and she pulled over another cop in a cop car doing like 100 and something because he was late to
I
work.
seen that video.
And then they ended up like going against her and all this stuff, and she had to but she had actually winning money on that deal. Because she was getting death threats from
Yeah.
officers and some weird shit.
I think there was some history behind that guy doing that though, and he
Okay.
was just abusive about it too. And but even then, our where I happen to work, those speeds
Mm-hmm.
and things that you do in city vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
most of our city vehicles are heavily monitored.
Right.
Our GPS data never goes away. Our audio video can be accessed and tapped at any given time.
Wow.
And anytime you have anything that that belongs to the city,
Mm-hmm.
can be investigated, and they do investigate it heavily. And we police ourselves pretty heavy at our police department.
That's I think Dave had a question about my came off, but that's what a lot of people fear, or they say they fear, is police policing them on their own selves. But I think if you got a good camaraderie and you're good people,
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't have any issues. And I have heard of some local municipalities that the officers don't seem to like each other, and that is fascinating to me because, and when I say don't like each other, in the sense that they don't, even on the job, they don't help each other very well.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, if you and I were together, working together, you may not like me and I may not like you, but when it's time to do the work, because it is such a dangerous job, let's push that shit to the side.
Yeah.
And do. But I'd also expect you, if I was doing something shady, to keep me in check or bust my ass about it, and I think people believe, whether it's true or not, that law enforcement don't do that. They don't hold their buddies accountable or their coworkers accountable, and I think they should. I don't know if they always do, and I know every municipality is different, but
I think there will always be things within all fields of work, whatever it is, where things do slip by. But I can safely say, where I work, our guys get policed by us, and other agencies can step in too.
Yeah, I'm saying more blatant stuff. People like to embellish or blow up that this municipality's dirty or that municipality's dirty or whatever. They're just fun. But how would you, as an officer, if you, the general public, this is people listening to this, how would you assure that you guys are doing due diligence to hold each other accountable? Because even as a bro, if you and I were working together, I was a law enforcement officer with you, and I was doing something, even say we were traffic stopping somebody together, and I was kind of being a dick or whatever. Obviously, you kind of don't want to make a scene at the moment unless I'm just going overboard. But later, I would expect you to say, "Hey, man, you were kind of a dick."
That happens right there.
Okay,
I
that's
have done
good.
that.
Okay, that's
to
good.
Officers. I was like, "Come here," and talk to them afterwards.
Where they were just too hard.
There's been some instances where there was safety and then there was unprofessionalism, and I like to think I fixed both of both of those instances. And there's been a few other things, but we're human beings.
Sure.
So,
Absolutely. So let me tell you. So I worked years ago. I worked with where I ran a group of guys that they were on a lower economic scale. Okay, and they used to come in. Sometimes they would miss a whole day, or they would show up late, and they would say, "Hey, Dave, I got arrested. I got this. I got that. Whatever." And here's the line I would get all the time, and I found it very interesting. And before I tell you the story, I've been 16 years without a speeding ticket. Okay, these guys, it's like rolling the dice. You pull them over, and God knows what you're going to discover.
right.
So they said, "Dave, what happened to innocent until proven guilty?" He goes, "When I get pulled over, I'm guilty until I prove myself innocent all the time." He goes, I hate it. I hate these guys. I get pulled over and automatically I know I'm going to jail. Now you got to keep in mind, these guys have a laundry list of whatever going on.
I'd like to throw 2 cents in there. I'm getting pulled over. I know I'm going to jail.
Now, I'm not saying he's got a heroin needle in his arm and a beer in his hand when he gets pulled over.
But what I'm saying is they're convinced that they're going to jail. Why are you convinced that you're going to jail? Because you probably know you did some stupid shit and somebody's looking for you. Because our life is determined by our choices.
Absolutely.
And I have made my own bad choices and I've had to rectify. And there's nothing better than fucking up and then squaring up.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has that chance. So,
But well, here's the important thing. Anybody that's ever worked for me, I have this saying, and I say it all the time. I say the sweetest word in the English language is accountability.
Mm-hmm.
It rolls off the tongue like silk. It's smooth with no sharp edges. Let's all and I'll tell my guys, I go, let's all say it together.
Accountability.
It's beautiful, right? And it's the joke that my guys,
I like that though.
Anybody that works for me, they understand.
I like that.
And me as well. But for people that are listening, any of my previous life guys,
Right.
What would you say to that they feel like they are a victim and that they are guilty from the moment they're pulled over until they can prove their own innocence?
Well, I do think a lot of that, and I'm pulling from both sides of my life. Growing up in my teens and 20s, doing stupid stuff, chasing girls, and doing things that probably got my attention with Birmingham police because I got stopped quite a bit growing up. And I used to feel that way a little bit. But usually, if you feel that way,
it's for a reason.
There's a reason for it. You just don't quite understand why you feel that way. And that's something that you tend to get once you, not necessarily with maturity. It's when you get out of that lifestyle and you step away from it and you start figuring out why the police do what they do. We use probable cause, reasonable suspicion, and the rule of law. We investigate. We can sometimes put pressure, with words and ways we do things to bring out the truth. Are they always right? No, because I remember growing up getting stopped. Sometimes they thought we were doing things that we wasn't doing. And the police were not right, but they were investigating. They're human beings. And sometimes they intimidated us, but ultimately, my problem doesn't lie with, trying to prove guilty or innocent or all that. Is being professional and not crossing the legal boundaries, staying in the line of the law, being professional, but also being as safe as possible. That's all I am concerned about in police work.
I got the funniest police story. It's a Birmingham police story, and I have to tell it before I forget it. But I was 16 years old. I had a 79 Firebird. Regret getting rid of that car because it was a good car. But we were in Southside. I lived way out. Lived in another county. Of course, my mother, when she listens to this, didn't realize that once I got my car, I would drive all the way into Birmingham and hang out with my buddies. Southside was hot, whatever.
Oh yeah.
But I was coming down 20th Street and big long road, and I'm a dumb kid, 16 years old, and I come into an intersection and I decide to make my left-hand turn. Well, I make that left-hand turn. There's a police officer, squad car sitting right there. He was heading east, and I decided I was going to head west. Well, my juvenile dumbass didn't realize that was a one-way street until I made that turn. And when my windows down, and I had a couple buddies in the car, and as soon as I made that turn, I was window to window with him. I stopped and I looked right at, because I knew I fucked up. I looked right at him and he goes,
"That's awesome."
He goes, "Are you fucking stupid?" I said, "I am tonight." And he just stared at me for a second. He goes, "Turn it around." He never hit his lights, never got a car. And the light turned green. He went on because I started turning around, and I thought that was the coolest thing. He looked at me as a person, and he just goes, "Are you fucking stupid?" And I looked at him, and I go, "I am tonight."
You know why you like that? Because if you was the cop, you would have done the same thing.
Yeah,
you would have said the same thing. Because and a lot of times people don't realize, when they see something like that and they're confronted by a cop, they're like, "Oh, he's he's at the right moment, at the right time. He's going to turn around and get me. But half the time, man, I see stuff going. I used to see it when I was on the streets working. I'd be going from a call to another call, and I'm seeing 5 or 6 things I needed to stop right then. It's just like there's so much stuff that goes on in the city, especially. But so something like that may have happened, and he was probably going on the call or going to do something else.
He was
Yeah.
going to eat, dude. That dude, he wasn't in no hurry when he
Hey,
pulled out of that line.
sometimes that happens too.
Yeah.
He's like,
I am going to go eat.
yeah,
Nobody's stopping me. So quit
he's
driving
not-
crazy.
He saw a bunch of dumb knucklehead kids,
Yeah.
and the road was desolate. I mean, at the time, it wasn't like a busy street.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the fact that I instantly stopped, he knew that I realized I fucked up.
Yeah.
Well, see,
And-
The point was made. I
that
guess.
car you had too, man. Let me tell you, like Birmingham. Oh my goodness, they thought I was some type of terrible person, doing bad stuff. Because it was like 80. Let's see, it was 91 or 92. I bought an 85 model Porsche 944,
Nice. Yeah,
and
dude.
I miss that car too. That was like my favorite little car. But so I was cruising around with that, chasing girls and this and that, and that's all I was ever really concerned with. And but they thought I was up to no good, because I had the little hood look, and all that. But so they were constantly, stopping me, giving me tickets and this and that. But,
right.
So let me ask you. So one of the hot topics right now in the country is marijuana use. So let's go ahead and get
The
into
state of
that.
Alabama just passed the first leg of the medical marijuana thing.
Right.
Just passed.
So let's go ahead and get into that. And now I have a lot of questions that, because of my background and the people I've associated with through work, that they've come to me and they've complained. They always feel like the victim. So I'm going to ask questions that these guys have always come to me with. That obviously I don't have the answer. I'm a manager at work. I'm not a police officer. But you guys come up to a car. How do y'all determine? I'm curious. Now I will say this: that I'm not a pot smoker, but I have been down the road behind a car and actually smelled it
Like-
coming from that car.
Thinking,
Memory
damn,
strikes.
they spent good money on that.
Yeah. So what is the protocol for you guys? If you don't see it, you smell it. I mean, where are we on all that?
Well, now I'll get it. I'm gonna go from the very basics up to where it kind of gets complicated, because as the laws like you're talking about start changing and things start loosening up in some areas, there will be changes as far as the way we operate to a degree. But and just to throw something else in there real quick, Jefferson County is citing for I think small amounts.
Yeah, they changed.
Right.
They're wanting to reduce. If I read this article correctly, they're wanting to reduce the charges and the fines, or how they basically prosecute certain levels.
Right, for a certain,
Right.
less than a certain amount.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
to where it used to.
I don't even know what it is. And, if I was actually on patrol working with the guys, I would know that exactly right now. But that is specifically for Jefferson County. It's not for the other surrounding municipalities.
Well, let me ask
But-
you this: when you say for Jefferson County, if you work in a municipality
Within Jefferson County.
within Jefferson County, do they adhere, or is like if one neighborhood, you got Birmingham, you got Hoover, you got Vestavia, you got Trustful, yeah, you got all these things. Do they have to go by what the county is saying, or by what their municipality
No,
is saying?
it's what the county's doing is saying what the actual sheriff's department
Gotcha.
is going to do. Doesn't have anything to do with the laws in general. It's just what they're willing to incarcerate.
Do you think that
and
can be
lock up.
confusing to
it
the
absolutely-
average person, because they're like, hell no, Jefferson, they just
It
said,
already is.
blah blah blah.
There's been traffic stops where they're saying, "No, you can't take me to jail for this. You can't take me to jail for that." And I've heard officers talking about how I know. But here's the whole thing with it all. So typically, if we smell green marijuana, burnt marijuana, we see seeds or stems, and it's amazing on people that may have not even smoked 6 months or a year, and there's still seeds and stems in the car. That's our probable cause to get inside the car right then and there.
And they cannot. They even if they say, "I don't give you authority."
Well, it's probable cause.
It doesn't matter.
It does
You're
not
going
matter.
in.
Yeah.
If we smell green or we smell burnt, and they may be coming from a friend's house smoking, we're in the vehicle. And that's what I'm saying is not secret knowledge. It's public. It's knowledge. That is the truth.
If you're smoked up, they're coming in.
When you got to think about it like this right here. Now, regardless of where, you would probably be shocked at my opinions about marijuana and other things too, and we can kind of talk about some of that and do some things later. But the thing is that if cars are driving up and down our road and our kids are out here playing in the yard or crossing the street to another friend's house, do we want somebody driving that is smoking the marijuana that's out there now, because it's from high grade stuff?
Sure.
That's intoxication, just like it would be if they were drinking alcohol or popping Lortabs, or even prescription medications.
So you could hit them with a DUI.
Yes.
Just like alcohol.
Yeah, DUI, other intoxications, what it's called.
Huh.
And
Now I've heard that.
But then that goes back into the whole thing about, and I've debated in my mind on this on a lot of different levels, and it goes back into what we have laws that if you're abusing whatever it is, it could be anything. It could be cough syrup because you're sick, but you drank the whole bottle for whatever reason. Now you got it in your vehicle. Now you're intoxicated. That's DUI other. So if you're abusing legal things, why do we have to have some things completely illegal? And here's my thinking, why does marijuana have to be illegal? Why can't we just have it if they're smoking marijuana and driving? Now we take them to jail. If they're going to a house to smoke marijuana and stay there until the effects are off, why is that illegal?
Right.
So, and that goes to the same thing as we have to apply that same logic to alcohol, to prescription pills, to any type of medication or whatever. So I've tossed and turned, with that in my mind about it. The problem is this right here, is that some drugs change your behavior to dangerous behavior. And
just like alcohol.
Right.
Some people are.
Some drugs are labeled dangerous drugs. To me, alcohol, although it's legal, is not a dangerous drug until you get over certain limits.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I don't think, this is my personal opinion, it's no reflection upon anybody I work with or my department or anything else. I personally do not think marijuana needs to be labeled a dangerous drug.
Agreed.
Unless you are doing it in a dangerous manner, and then I can see that. But it should be like alcohol or
so you get
Lortabs.
You're baked up.
Prescriptions.
You're baked up riding down the street, and
yes.
You're.
But there's also arguments for this. Now, this is something you may have never even considered, but I'll tell you this, that I know this is fact, is that the amount of arrest and the amount of other drugs, guns, stolen guns, criminal activity that we discover just by seeing a seed or stem on somebody's clothes or in their lap, or smelling burnt marijuana, or smelling the green marijuana going down the road. I've smelled green marijuana going down the road and stopped a vehicle one time and got a lot of stuff.
And found guns or whatever.
Found lots of criminal activity. It's happened more than once. I can't tell you how many times it's happened, actually. But what I'm saying is, all that criminal activity comes from that marijuana is illegal, and now we can do our investigation. So if it becomes legal,
It's going to hinder you.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I want to find out what Colorado's laws are as far as their traffic stops and what they do and how they do it. But
do you guys get refresher courses when those things, when obviously laws change all the time and they're minute little laws and whatnot, but when a major change happens, is that like, I would, and I'm saying this in a hopeful manner, I'm thinking that, the heads of your departments at B, would say, okay, we got to have a briefing on this major new law that's going on in the state.
We do. We actually have district attorneys come in and they'll speak to us and do classes. We actually just had one on some legal issues and different things. But they come in. We'll get emails and briefings and things that we have to go over during roll call.
Well, now that's refreshing in that sense. Do you think, as a PR situation, that and now some lawyer probably tell me no, that's fucking crazy, but do you think that it would be wise to publish, and you may already do, I may not know, publish the continuing education that officers get for each municipality, so when, if this person's mad at whatever reason, says, I hate this precinct or I hate this city because they don't do stuff and blah blah blah, and you go look at our page. We're continuing.
Right.
We're constantly educating
that's
our
actually
officer.
a good. I've never even thought of that. So you can stack up Hoovers against Pelhams against Trustfuls, and you can see the education levels of the training that each officer's
Right.
that the department gets.
There'd
Right.
be some hurt feelings, man.
Well,
because
yeah.
there's some departments that
Well, then they better step up.
are way behind.
Step up.
And-
Well, it goes back to accountability, integrity,
Absolutely.
and stuff of that nature. And I know it's tough. I mean, you
Yeah.
guys work a lot of hours, and y'all train a lot of, or you should train. So we'll get into that.
Yeah,
a little
we'll
bit.
get into that.
We'll get into that a little bit, but it just seems like a smart move
Mhm.
from, if I'm running a department, if I'm a chief or a captain or whatever your titles are in that situation, and I'm not trying to say inundate your officers with so
Right.
much, because I know a lot of your officers don't make a tremendous amount of money. I know some of them make good money, but I know some of them don't make great money. But it just seems like an investment in your people. It seems like an investment in, I would rather pay you a couple of hours of overtime. I'd rather pay all my guys a couple hours of overtime than pay the legal bills
Mhm.
from just one case.
You'll
Well,
come out ahead.
that is very interesting that you say that, because again, my position is as an instructor, a trainer within my department, and we keep paper files of everybody's schools. We have a huge, robust training budget that we use to send our officers to continuing education,
Mhm.
and what you're asking, we do.
Right.
100%. Well, we may not make it public.
Right.
Some of it is public because we have websites, social media, different things where some of it does make it there.
Mhm.
But the amount of schools and education that we spend,
Is it too much to publish? I guess
there's no doubt it would be.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
it's massive.
I know each individual officer's getting different things based on their level of being an officer.
Right.
But I'm just talking about your overall things. Let's just say, okay, the whole department has to do this. This whole department has to do
Yes.
that.
Mhm.
On something specific, not officer specific, but just as a group, and
Right,
that
right.
kind of thing.
We
So
have that.
and that's good. I mean, that's
But I will say this, in comparison to other departments, a lot of it is just I feel very lucky and very happy that I am where I am because of the education that I was able to receive through our training budgets, and not just myself, but the entire. I have to schedule, like, I'll just give you for instance, the entire police department just went through defensive tactics.
okay.
They also, prior to that, all of patrol had to go through rifle school. They have to go through 2 yearly firearm qualifications. They have to go through driver training, taser training. All of us.
Right. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, and you can correct me on this or reassure me on this. I was actually listening to a guy today via the beautiful internet, and he was talking about law enforcement and whatnot, kind of prepping that you're going to be here, a little bit, and he said, of course, that when I heard him say it, the light bulb went off.
Mhm.
We do a lot of defensive, you guys do defensive tactics, taser tactics, whatever, all your different, to keep yourself safe. Not enough in my opinion, But and we'll get into that. But this guy seemed very intelligent. He said, in his opinion, and this guy apparently works with law enforcement. He goes, the Dale Carnegie School should be or something similar should be what officers do. And what it is, if you're people that aren't familiar with Dale Carnegie the Carnegie School is it's basically a sales school, and it teaches you how to communicate and sell and build trust and relationship.
Right.
And it's verbal jujitsu is what it is.
Yeah, verbal judo. I've
Yeah,
heard
yeah,
of that before.
and that's basically what it is. It's
I like that,
it's
actually.
coming across, and there's big courses and there's short courses.
Right.
And in Birmingham there is a Dale Carnegie course, and they will come and they will teach it. You can go to the school and their place and do it, or they'll come and do it at the different ones. And it just made so much sense to me, because it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about people not knowing how to talk to the police or whatnot. You can almost argue the fact that there are some officers
Mhm.
that don't know how to communicate well themselves, whether they're hypersensitive and defensive because of all the crazy things, especially in the last couple of years that's gone on with officers. They want to be proactive instead of reactive, which is not a bad thing to do.
Right.
But I think if there was I tell you, if there was a way I could do it, I'd write it and I'd sell it, and we'd all be rich and we could be talking about how great that was. But a verbal jujitsu course with officers, I'm telling you, if you got it to the point, and this guy said this too in his thing, some of your like little slender, skinny officers are really good at it because they know if they got to put hands on,
Right.
it's going to be a bad day for them.
Right.
And not that they're going to lose, but they fixing to have to work.
Well,
To whereas a big guy can just kind of massive his way
use
into
his size and
yes.
his intimidation
Yeah.
factor with that. No, you're absolutely right. I will say this, that it is not required with all of our officers, but many of our officers do take communication classes on verbal judo is what we call it. There's some guy that does it. I have not done that. I've taken communication and classes and the FBI instructor development classes and things like that to help me be able to teach and present any type of material that I choose to do.
Right.
But
And not just for when you're in court. I'm talking about that
Yeah.
initial, we're communicating, you pull me
Yeah.
over, or you see me crawling my ass out a window and you go, "Hey man, I'd like to have a conversation with you."
usually a lot of those things, when there's communication problems and attitude problems or trust issues with the public or something like that our officers have, we should be able to identify that, as field training officers or supervisors, sergeants, corporals, and whatnot that has officers under them, and to be able to direct them to training or courses that will straighten that out.
Now,
So let me ask you. So when you pull somebody over and they're obviously nervous, irritated, or whatever right on the onset, do y'all try to do something to put them at ease, or do you like to have them almost out of their mental element to try and get them
let them
to
make a mistake.
Yeah.
I don't think so. With me, I would never, because safety trumps everything. You know what I mean? So like, if I'm dealing with somebody like that and they're nervous and stuff, it's already got my senses up, and I'm more heightened and aware. But I'm always in the sense of, hey, let's calm down. When I have different little things I like to say continually, no matter who I'm talking to. I'll be like, hey man, I'm not here to hurt you. Calm down. We're just investigating. And I'll try to calm them down. There are certain things I do with my hands. When I'm talking up close, that seems more calm instead of being aggressive or having my hands on my tools, on my belt and things.
On your gun?
Yeah, I mean,
Well, that's his
there's
tools.
times that might be applicable, but there's also times that I'm trying to de-escalate.
Sure.
So there's de-escalation tactics, and most of the time, I'm always trying to de-escalate, even if I have a feeling that things are fixing to pop off and get really bad.
Right.
But I always want to try to de-escalate.
Sure.
Well, and it's like the unfortunate incident where the North Birmingham police officer, the guy had a gun, and I don't even know what happened, but the guy got loose from him or whatever, and
It was
his
Fast
life,
and Furious.
yeah, his life was ended, unfortunately, and So I get, me personally, I get where you definitely want to you definitely want to stay aware and you want to stay on point, if you will. The only thing, and hopefully, I'll probably piss some people off on this one, but I'll try to be good. I think I think some of the things, there's a couple of phrases that I just kind of, when I first used to hear them all the time, I'd be like, makes sense, whatever. But then it got to the point where I think when people say things over and over again, I think it loses its true meaning, and I think it loses its validity. And I don't think that law enforcement should go around saying, "Well, I got to go home first," or I'm going to do whatever it takes to go home to my family,
Mm.
because I think that now, with all the things that have happened or been publicized lately, is it's given a false narrative, and to whereas I think people are twisting it and saying, well, that just means the cops are just going to fucking shoot me before anything's ever done. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what so many people, they just say it over and over and over again.
Right.
I think that kind of stuff needs to be turned down a little bit.
Oh, no doubt. I
And-
agree.
Look, everybody wants to go home. Whether
Yeah.
you're a drug dealer, a cop, whatever, everybody
Right.
Well,
wants to
think
go
about
home at the
this.
end of the night.
Think about this. He's saying if a cop says, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to go home, you're going to break the law to go home? I mean, you know,
Right.
but
And-
my thing is, you don't have to do that. You don't even have to say that. I have told people that I am going to go home,
Right.
and I'll say that in a manner where, like, I want to keep you safe, I want to be safe, and I say stuff like that because that's still de-escalating, but
Right.
still almost being authoritative too. I have things I need you to do. Keep your hands on the dash. I'm here. That is for you.
Well,
I'm here
I-
to keep you safe.
I don't
I'm here
even-
to stay safe, and that's how I operate.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't even mean at the moment of an interaction. I'm talking about that's, you see your my friends, guys in blue, brown, whatever your municipality is,
Right.
they talk about it. I think it's another negative of social media. They throw that out there, and I think people have twisted what
Mhm.
they're saying to a negative. I think law enforcement should dial back on that stuff, because I think it's segregatory
Mhm.
between law enforcement and civilians. I think that we need to push, as a overall community, I need to push that I'm going to respect you and you're going to respect me. We're going to respect each other.
Right.
And then, yeah, we all go home. That's just the byproduct.
Sure.
That's-
And I'll be honest with you, I've never thought of that, but he makes a lot of sense.
No, it's
you
that.
know?
I actually have thought about what you said because, and there's a reason why I actually have thought about that too over the years, is because sometimes law enforcement does segregate itself
Mhm.
from the general public, and sometimes we're made to have to do it to a degree by things that the public does not understand or.
Well,
Or-
if I'm over here selling cocaine, we can't be buddies. I mean, that's
Exactly.
just that's obvious,
No, you're right, but there's a lot of things that we can do to bridge the gap. That's why our department tries to reach out with a lot of things in the media, in the public relationship stuff. We have a citizens relation unit where our community relations unit where we're trying to do things in the community and let people know that we are you. We just have a specific job and sworn to uphold the law, but we are the average everyday citizens. We are them. But but I do go back to what you're talking about. Do not use words that are divisive. Do not use words that separate you. And just like I was saying, when I have some burglary suspects, hey, I need you to keep your hands on the wheel. I need you to keep your hands on the back of that seat. This is for your safety and mine.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's
trying to say this is all for my safety and I'm going home. I don't care what happens to you.
Yeah.
That goes back to being professional and thinking through these things, as an adult and trying to bridge the gap, because ultimately we do not want to. I know I don't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah,
you
I mean, who really does?
Right.
I did a private with a law enforcement officer today, and it was a really good. And what we did we did control tactics. We did things of that nature, and I stress test him a little bit, and which was a lot of fun.
Cool.
And but you know, his whole thing, it wasn't about in any form or fashion, I want to kick the shit out of somebody.
Right.
His whole thing was, I want to be able to, if it goes south and we got to do hands on, I want to be able to control him or her without pulling a tool. And that was his, you know, without pulling a gun, without pulling a taser, to keep it as minimal as possible.
Totally respect that guy
and,
for that.
And that was his whole, you know, and but keep his items safe at the same time. And so we went over a lot of that stuff, and I think that he's doing it right. I think that he is, the mindset is correct.
Well, you get I think 40 hours, something like that. I think in the you have the academy now that we send our guys to is 520 hours, if I remember correctly. I think 40 of it is defensive tactics, but after that they should get some continuing education in defensive tactics through their departments. But a lot of departments do not teach near as much as
they don't
others.
They either don't have. I'm sure a lot of them don't have the budget, especially your small municipalities. Right. But I'm gonna tell you, man, and I love you guys to death, and I know a lot of you, but some of y'all motherfuckers are lazy.
Oh yeah, there's a huge amount of them that are, and
so let me ask you this, and this is putting it out there, and God, I'll get some snarls and some funky looks. What is it? And this is strictly Chris Boland's opinion, and I'll take it and I'll own it. What is it about putting on the badge that gives a man or a woman a false sense of security about their abilities?
Boom. Good. This is going to be a
and I say that because I've never put on a badge or a gun.
No, I'm with you, but I think you're asking a question on behalf of a lot of people, and I'm ready for this answer.
Well, we've all seen it. Me as an officer, you guys as in your roles, we've all seen that. And so if you have a gun belt on and you've got a taser, a gun, you have handcuffs, you have a badge which represents, you know, the law behind you, you have a department with other officers that's going to come running if something goes down, that does seem to give some people a false sense of security when it comes to making things worse. Mm-hmm. Now, should you have a certain sense of security if you're confronting someone for truly doing something incorrect and you're trying to correct that behavior? Or
I'm talking about just on a very John Wayne-ish attitude of, I'm fixing, you know, if it goes south, I can kick your ass. And I'm gonna tell you what, man.
Oh, you're talking about on a physical attitude.
A physical.
Oh, that's sad, and I have seen that. But that goes back to a lot of people just being ignorant in general on what true self-defense is. And I was hoping you were going to lead off into that, because now you and I, we're going to see where we all are on if we're on the same page. I got a feeling you and I are going to be real ultra close on this. But a lot of people, even now, adults, professional officers that's been there for long periods of time, will still have that false sense of security. They rely on their taser, or they rely, well, I'll just street fight with them. You know, I'll just scrap with them and everything else. And that is the most ignorant thing ever to me, as far as.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, and I told this. And this is my brazenness, if you will. I told the officer I was working with today that, you look at me, and I don't think that I have a very menacing look about me. You know, I'm pretty, you know, just average Joe looking guy. But if you come at me, even I'll say I'll go up to 2 officers approach me, and I'm at the point of lost logic. It may be a domestic. I'm committed to the point in my mind that fuck the world. Fuck it. It's going to be hell for 2 officers to fuck with me unless they tase me or shoot me, because I train.
Exactly.
And there are a lot of people that are very unassuming that do train. A lot more than there was 10 years ago because of the popularity of UFC, popularity of, different, just fighting in
Mixed
general.
martial arts, yeah.
And I think the common knowledge, even people that don't train, and I said this today, this is after our training thing, you got people, in 1995, there was a huge number of people that didn't know what a rear naked choke was. There was a huge number of people that didn't know what a guillotine choke was. Yeah, they're just wild swinging hands, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of police tactics that have been brought up through, I think, from probably the onset of the 50s and 60s, have a lot of judo and a lot of catch wrestling. And this was a police tactics, and almost like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, if the common person doesn't know, those bare bones basics are very effective.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, now you've gotten to an age where so many people just know common. They may have never ever trained before, but they know if this person charges in, I'm going to choke him with a guillotine. Or if I take this officer's back, I'm going to wrap my arm around him. And I don't really know what the hell I'm doing, but I know if I choke him from behind like that, he's going out.
Oh, yeah.
So it amazes me that law enforcement does not train after they get out of the thing. And I think the officers that have been around the longest are the most susceptible because I think they get into a comfort zone.
Well, they absolutely do. They're sitting in a vehicle. They're eating fast food. They're maybe going to a call, gathering information, going to the next call, gathering information. So over the years, that does take a toll on your body. And it takes a toll on your physique. If you do not step out and get physical, hit the gym, have partners where you're training martial arts and so forth. But I will say this. I've seen the older guys are more like that, absolutely. And sometimes there's physical injuries that cause that too.
That's understandable.
But the younger guys that we've hired these days are slap animals, physical specimens.
But it kind of goes back to what I'm saying. The younger guys are more aware, of what's going on. And I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to know that these young officers aren't coming in dumpy and dumb. And that I there's nothing wrong. I want them to be. If I got 5 guys outside Walmart trying to whoop my ass, I don't want the fat guy to show up. I want the young
dumpy and dumb.
We try to encourage, being able to go to the gym. There's certain incentives for some of our officers too to be able to go to the gym. We get memberships for free in different places and different things, or discounts. But so we try to encourage that. And with myself, I offer extra days a month that the officers can come in and get time for training 3 or 4 hours. Sometimes I even offer up to 8 hours a day for training. Like the last defensive tactics that we did, I'll just tell you, this last week, Monday through Thursday, we did, it was an 8-hour day, but, we give them an hour lunch. So we basically rolled and kickboxed and worked on our striking. It was kind of half and half, and for 7 hours that day.
That's good.
And so we did have some older guys come in. We're trying to make it more mandatory for all of patrol. So whoever's on patrol goes and has to get the educational training.
Makes common sense to me, man.
So let me ask you. So from a layman's term, when is the last time that you've needed either striking or jiu-jitsu or whatever?
As far as my job at work, law enforcement and stuff.
Only reason is because I just find it interesting. Come on, I mean, that's the kind of stuff people want to know.
I've got a lot of stories. I'm not even really sure exactly how to put them on.
No, but was
it
this morning? Was it
No.
yesterday?
Well, I'm not in a role right now. The only time I do any type of real police action is if we're activating our SWAT team to go serve warrants or deal with barricaded people, hostage rescue type things of that type sort. So, but other than that, I'm teaching classes and in an instructor role, keeping up their certifications.
So if you get called in, the real shit's going down.
Absolutely, and absolutely, and it does happen.
Yeah,
it does
John's
happen.
on a call. It's done escalated. We're past the point of fat guys rolling around on the ground.
It's not a speeding ticket.
No. But I will say this, man. on patrol, I used it. Sometimes it was daily, something daily I used, whether it was just a figure four arm lock to control the arm to get their arms behind their back because now they're maybe passively resisting or resisting a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a hook leg sweep to take somebody down to the ground to control them
Well,
better.
Let me ask a question.
Yeah.
Women are rougher, aren't they?
Uh,
They got to be rougher, man. Women don't have no. I love the ladies, but man, when they decide to go off,
Yes.
there's no talking to them, man. They don't.
Can you see that scar? I have a scar right here from a woman when I was handcuffing her. She dug the handcuffs into my wrist. I had a scar for the longest time that went up my arm where a female scratched me when I was trying to handcuff her. I had a female kick out my side door window one time.
They're
I mean,
passionate animals, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Especially, you know,
Got a little
ex-wives.
Ex-wives.
Yeah.
So
Get a little fun with them, man. I'm telling. I say that as a kid. I kidding around because and being serious but kidding around. I've heard from multiple officers because everybody thinks, oh, you got to go fight this 6'3", 250-pound man. They're like, man, the women are the ones that are worse because you don't know what they're
To be
going to
honest
do.
with you,
They're going to be down.
now I've had some some hard fights with some rather large, tall guys, but most of the time the tall, bigger guys don't really give us a whole lot of problems. It seems to be the short guys, like my height,
Short guy complex.
Yeah, something. I don't know what it is. They're just crazy. And then
Like my Chihuahua.
and then I'm just telling you from my own personal experiences what
Yeah.
I remember. Like it's like the shorter dudes and the women were always like really difficult to deal with. You just seemed like there was more of them, But there were times that there was times I was by myself and having to deal with 6'4", 6'5" gigantic dudes.
Just like fuck.
So that brings me to my next question. At what point do you decide that I'm going to physically engage, I'm going to pull out a taser, or I'm going to pull out my gun? I mean, how do you make that split-second decision?
It can't be split.
It has to be
You
split
think
second.
it's split?
Absolutely. Shit, I mean, you got,
Well, that's hard to articulate.
and I know each
because,
situation's different.
yeah, I could go into, I'm going back into my vault here of calls and situations where I've done that, actually put hands and had my weapon out, or put my weapon up, put hands on them, and just back and forth. And there's been times it's flowed back and forth like that, where I've had my weapon out, dealing with the situation, and then I'm going weapon up, putting my hands on. Now it's a fight, and now they're, I'm dealing with them, and then maybe I'm back having my weapon out on another person that was involved in. Maybe there's been different times of where it's flowed back and forth like that. Depending on what's going on, it really it's situation dependent. And with your weapons out, you have to be able to articulate that you thought your life was threatened. You don't necessarily have to articulate that if you're hands on, because now you're trying to effect the arrest with hands on and control the situation. Now if I'm hands on and I'm striking you in the head, that can be articulated as deadly force because I'm doing something in the head, purposely.
I always find it highly amusing because I like to shoot myself. I'm a pretty good shot, and more than just paper targets, I like to move and shoot and stuff like that. And I always laugh at people. You should have just shot him in the leg. I mean, I'm like, Jesus Christ, nobody knows the 20-foot rule, but because I have seen people. And there's a guy that I used to wrestle with, and I've never seen anybody that could be about 12 feet from you, level change, and hit you in the leg before you can even blink.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, holy shit.
We
he
do
was
that
so
drill all the
fast.
time with shock knives.
Yeah, so it's like,
We have knives that'll shock you,
Yeah.
and we'll do the 21-foot rule. But legally, if you took a gun and shot me in the toe, then you just use deadly force against me.
yeah.
Sure,
So if you're gonna do it, you're committed anyway.
So let me ask you something. So when an officer pulls a gun out, not the taser, not a baton, but they pull the gun out, that is not an intimidation tactic to the aggressor. It is with the intent to use. True or false?
No, it's both. Because it is absolutely both. Because
Well, I would think that if it was to intimidate or to slow down, they would go with a taser, right?
it depends. It depends. There are times. Look at it like this right here. A taser is not necessarily going to be effective if you have somebody in a car and there's a door there for a taser.
Oh no, I mean,
We're standing out in the
meat
street.
to meat. Yeah,
No,
body to body.
Well,
Meat to meat.
well, it
Hey,
depends.
that's a different story, man.
If I think, meat. I see what you're saying. I'm just so if I'm dealing with somebody here, I'm not going to pull a gun on a person if they're just saying they're just being disorderly, or I don't feel like there's some type of deadly threat involved there. Now, I may pull my taser, but let's say I did pull my gun because now they're being disorderly, violent, saying violent things, or maybe it looks like they want to reach inside their pants because there may be something unknown. Maybe I'm seeing an outline or something. I might take my pistol and go to what we call a Sewell position, which would be pointing straight down here, because we train this at the range. This is functional,
Safe.
and I can punch out and do what I have to do at that point. So and it's safe. Now, if he's just robbed a store, or or he's being violent, now he's got his hands in his pocket and he's not complying with me, I may get my weapon out and I may have it trained on him at that point, because now things are escalated a little bit.
Well, there's things that have happened in the recent past in this state, and what is, and you never know, and again, I like to encompass being a police officer is a lot harder than people realize, because things happen so fast and you don't know. Sometimes you just don't. You're reacting. You don't know, especially in a large, crowded public situation. If you run up, shots are fired. Shots are fired. It's called out. Shots are fired. You run into it, and it's mass hysteria, if you will. To be able to process movement, separating good guy with a gun versus a bad guy with a gun. And I almost get to where I don't like those phrases anymore either, because I think it's just divisive. Because how do you know? I mean, I see a guy with a gun, it's a fucking guy with a gun. I don't know what he is. And so, but it's hard to separate what's going on. And that has to be, how would you even train that? I mean, that is such a
We just went through that recently.
Yeah.
Last Christmas.
Yeah, so it's such a complicated thing to train.
Well,
I'm just telling you, if I see a guy with a gun and he's standing over a guy that might be laying down, he might be protecting that guy, or he might be shooting that guy, and I don't know. and I ask myself this: how would I engage that situation? How would I purposely go in and say, how? I think you know what I'm saying.
Oh, no.
Let me
tell you how I would.
Yeah.
All right, so I've went through a couple different ones actually, but the latest one was I got certified as an active threat response instructor. Active threat response instructor, and what it was is for active shooters. So, how do you deal? And think about it. As a law enforcement officer, we, our department, and most everyone else I know expects, although there was a recent ruling on this, which I just found it sad, kind of, but the departments expect, say there is somebody in the school shooting, kids are dying. Should the officers go outside, make a perimeter, and wait for SWAT to show up, or does that initial responding officer take initiative, take their patrol rifle, and go handle business?
I know what you're talking about.
So if they go handle business, what is their tactics? I just went and got certified as an instructor in that.
I'll tell you what your tactic is. You go find that guy that fucking from the SAS guy overseas that was in the market, and he went and got his shit out of the damn.
Was awesome picture,
oh my God, it was
cool.
awesome. I wish I was that cool.
But just to let you know, all of our patrol officers have a degree of training, and they may not be an instructor in that, but they have had some training in that, and they have plate carriers in their vehicles, hard plate carriers to stop rifle rounds. They'll slip that on, grab their patrol rifle, and they are expected to go.
But let's back it up. Let's say you're in a public place. Say you're in a grocery store, and you just happen to be in uniform. You're ready to go, and then you don't have time to go back to your patrol car.
Oh no, you're going right there.
You're going right there. And the thing about it, I guess is what I'm saying is, and I have no right answer. I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there. How do you train for shutting that shit down and keeping everybody safe and trying to minimize your mistake? Because I say minimize your mistake because there's no way we're perfect. We're going to make some sort of mistake. We just don't want to make a bad mistake and
Yeah.
shoot the wrong person or do whatever. And I think that's ignorance on the general public's part, because if I see you coming, and I like to say I'm a good guy with a gun, I got my gun out, I think I should holster my gun and at least drop to a knee and let you realize that I'm not a threat. That's my thinking. If I'm sitting there and I'm still holding my gun,
Oh
and
yeah,
you're coming
that's
up,
not good.
and
Well, it's all right. So the responding officers, for number one, the responding officer to an active shooter will have training on the range where we discuss mindset, we discuss skill set, we talk about the emotional things, we do stress drills, we do drills that put them mentally and physically stressed. Our department gets that every year,
that's awesome.
at least twice.
I want to do the Simtex thing.
Yeah.
I want to see how bad I get shot.
Yeah.
That's how you say it, right? Simtex.
Well, we have a firearms training simulator and thing.
Okay.
I'll try to get it approved and take you guys to it if you want me to.
that'd be
Fuck it,
awesome.
awesome.
It's actually fun, man. It's
Yeah.
pretty good stuff. Well, I'll talk to y'all about that later. But but what I'm saying is, so these officers get that mindset. Now, will each officer do that? I don't know. That's an individual thing.
Sure.
And some of them will go in there like warriors, and some of them may not.
Right.
But all we can do is try to push the best training for them to do that. Now, to identify the active shooters, we have a thing where we look at. So people are, in the training that I took to get an instructor in it, they actually did have people, civilians with guns. That in this scenario you had, active shooters with guns, and then you had civilians with guns as well. So the civilians are running, and you're having to identify which one's a civilian. Hey, get down on the ground, and you're doing a lot of things. So you're looking at hands, whole body, mannerisms. 3 different things that you look at when you are going through assessing who's friendlies or not friendly.
Well, let me ask this question, and this slow question, and it's not giving. I don't think giving away tactics or anything like that, because I definitely don't want to educate somebody to do wrongdoing. But if you saw me, active shooter comes on, and you rounded the corner, and there I am, I'm with a gun. Okay, I got my gun out, and I'm standing there. I'm obviously, and I make eye contact with you, but I do not point my gun at you. Would your response be put it down or do something of that nature, or how would you address that situation?
An officer is not required by law to tell you to drop the gun.
Okay.
Now, if I round the corner, and if I got a little bit of cover too, and I know I can take shots, and I'm I have a thing, if I'm on sights with my pistol, I'm on trigger.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm off sights, I'm off trigger. So if I'm on sights, on trigger, I'm looking at you, you're in my sights, I'm 99.9%, you are the active shooter,
Mm-hmm.
and you're pointing your weapon down here, and I tell you to drop it. In that split second, if I say drop it, and you go bang, bang,
Right,
and
right,
now
right.
you're shooting at me, I
Right.
just gave you a heads up
Right.
to shoot me, because now I'm having to work off your action.
Right.
My reaction's always going to be slower.
Sure.
So there's things that you have to consider with that. Do I want to tell you to drop the gun so I don't kill you? Yes, but will I? Probably not.
Educate us as responsible gun owners. Obviously, if an active shooter situation comes up, I'm pulling my gun. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So educate me if I'm a gun owner, I got my gun out, good guy with a gun, whatever you want to call it. What should I do if I see law enforcement come on the scene before you even have a chance to maybe even recognize that I have a gun? What would be your advice to me or anybody listening? What would you suggest I do?
If you're a civilian with a gun and there's an active shooter,
I'm talking about now, but now you're coming in on scene. So,
Right.
so what do I need to do as soon as I see law enforcement? What should I do if my gun is in my hand.
Hey, I'm a civilian. I've got my guns in your hand. I'd lay it down on the ground, or either put it in my holster and put my hands up on my head, or up and say, I'm a civilian. I'm armed. And articulate what you are. They'll probably, if you got to think about it, they're coming into an active shooter
Sure,
scene.
they're still gonna
it's
put
very
you down.
possible that they're going to put you down, secure the weapon, and secure you.
Sure.
You know,
And I have no issue with that.
yeah, because not mind readers. You don't know who's
Sure.
a bad guy, who's friendly,
Sure.
unfriendly. So that's probably what they're going to do. I mean, the situation can get crazy, and we don't know what's going on.
I say all that. This is all lead up, and I think people, I think we all have the right to bear arms.
Mhm.
I'm a big proponent of the Second Amendment. What I would like to see, and I know everybody tries to make a living, instead of just people going and paying an instructor to shoot at paper targets, whatnot,
Mhm.
I really think we should encourage people to take that kind of gun, not just a gun safety course of, I know that not to put my finger on the trigger, not to point it, not to wand anybody. I think we should teach as a part of the curriculum.
Mhm.
Let's spend a little bit of time and teach some common sense on you are now a responsible gun owner. You are now a responsible gun owner in the public,
Mhm.
and some shit goes down. And you're protecting yourself, you're
Mhm.
protecting your husband, protecting your wife, protecting your kids, whatever the situation. But you've got to understand now,
Mhm.
you have a big target on you for not only whoever's doing bad, but
Right.
also law enforcement. I think we should have an open discussion on not just how damn cops just come in shooting. I think let's take a little responsibility on the other side,
Right.
and let's figure out a way to teach responsible gun owners how to honestly do what I just asked you. Okay, cops are coming in, you see them. I'll probably see you before you see me, unless you're coming in from behind. I need to have enough common sense on me. I'm a good guy with a gun. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I say, oh shit, okay, cops are on site. I'm holstering, or I'm sitting down and
Yeah.
doing what you just said to do.
Right.
And it's not like it's a big course, but the problem is you're going to have people that are going to try to make money off of it. I'm going to teach you how to do the right thing course.
Yeah.
But
They should have to take a gun safety class, bare minimum. They should have to take maybe with the gun safety, be able to do a small qualification.
Mhm.
With their weapon of choice. Is what I'm thinking. But we should encourage those things if they're going to purchase a firearm. I don't know. I ride the line because I'm believe in the Second Amendment. too.
right.
But
I-
I think we need to encourage it. Maybe have some incentives or something to encourage it.
That's my thing. I don't think we should make it a requirement per se. I think we should make the information available
Yeah.
and very easy to get without having to pay $55 or
Right.
$150 to some
A
guy.
responsible person would train with their firearm because it just makes sense,
Well-
and so forth. But there's a lot of people out there that, like you said, have a false sense of security. When you said that, it reminded me. There's a lot of officers that have false senses of security with their tasers, and they think that taser is just a catch-all, and they use it a lot. But the problem is that when it does not work, and there's a lot of times it does not work, and they
Yes.
come back and try to fight you because it's not working, you better be ready.
But with a taser, don't you only get one shot?
Well, the ones we have now, there's a couple different types. There's the X26, there's the X2, there's the X7 now, and I think there's even another one. But the X26 had a cartridge on the end.
Mhm.
So once you fired it, you can take that spent cartridge off, and there's one on the bottom. You can put it on real quick.
Oh, okay.
The X2 has two cartridges in the front, so you can squeeze the trigger, pow, turn, and squeeze another one, and you can engage two people with.
Oh, that's the one I
see.
want.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's
I
pretty-
thought it was one shot, you're done.
Yeah,
So
and the problem is that the bigger the spread, because one dart goes straight, the other dart has a little bit of an angle on it, and the bigger the spread, the more the muscle group that it's going to get, and it'll start twisting it up. If I hit Chris here and not only have that spread right there, he is probably going to continue to fight with no problem because it's just twisting this up.
Piss the fuck off. I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you.
Because they have darts and wires that go in it.
Sure,
that have the current. So it's just a tool. You are the weapon is the way I look at it. But
Right.
a lot of officers are like, this is my weapon or this is my weapon. I solely rely on my firearm or my taser or my baton.
What do you think about the and I'll probably mess this state, but there's a state up north that they're pushing that their guys not take anything they classify as warrior training.
Yeah.
To me, that's I don't it can almost go back to what I was saying earlier about being a divisive wording or whatever. But
Right.
to not do self defense training is just that's the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my life. I take defense training and I'm not a law enforcement officer.
Exactly.
What the fuck, man? That doesn't make any sense at all.
Do we really want our officers not training in tactics and warrior type tactics? I mean, we don't like to think of our police officers as warriors, but ultimately they are the first line of defense in a war against lawbreakers.
Right. Well, when you go back to the beginning of what police officers were meant for, that goes, basically they were set up for just, protecting businesses, and then it evolved and stuff like that. And I think that's where a lot of people get angst is they're like, well, no, you're just getting over in my business, but they're usually the first ones that call you,
Right. I think a lot of it, if you really dig deep down into things, I think it's because our society has some lopsided laws. I think, like I was telling our officers, we were talking, and a lot of them didn't like what Jefferson County's doing with the marijuana ticketing and stuff. And I'm like, are we so, ignorant and stubborn as a law enforcement society or a society in general of conservatives and religious people? And not to knock any of that because I am halfway that way.
Mhm.
But are we so stubborn in that type of thinking that we cannot change and rebalance some of our laws as new information comes in? And I'm going to get into, I want your opinions on this as I talk about this. So I got certified as a drug recognition expert in some schools at a certain agency, a certain group that did it. And they taught us that marijuana and hallucinogens kill brain cells in that school and that they had some addictive properties. Well, as the science has developed, information has come out, which is always slow to come out, and different things, we find out that neither marijuana nor hallucinogens kill brain cells
Right.
at all.
Yeah. Well, don't you think this it's regurgitation? We were a lot of people that teach things, they're just regurgitating what they're taught,
Yeah,
and
I do feel that probably there was a lot of good information that was taught in that school, no doubt about it. A lot of science behind, how to recognize what people were taking, whether it's amphetamines, depressants, hallucinogens, alcohol, so forth. But what my problem was is they were teaching some incorrect information on marijuana and hallucinogens, because now we know, like, marijuana is a mildly hallucinogenic plant. It's in the plant of hallucinogens. Hallucinogens speed up your heart rate, but distort your time perception. And now we know that both, marijuana and the hallucinogenic plants, whether they're mushrooms, DMT, whether it's ayahuasca, and all these other things, they have medical therapeutic properties for anxiety, for depression, when used correctly in the scientific manner. So because they're labeled as dangerous drugs, there's not been a whole lot of research that was able to be done on it. That needs to change.
Right.
That's why marijuana and hallucinogens in general, in my opinion, this is John's opinion, that I believe those laws, we need to change. The scientific information has came in. We understand these things a little bit better. We understand them. So let's change our laws, not be so, rigid and stubborn about them, and let's help use these things to help maybe make people healthier.
yeah.
Well, I think you have kind of down south. Listen, we can't even get the lottery for Christ's sakes down
Yeah.
here, And I just think that we are probably slower to adopt some laws than others, and
Right.
it's absolutely asinine. Now, I do have a brother that lived in Colorado for years and years, and just in the last 6 months or so, he left. And he said that the one issue that they have in Colorado is there's a very high, since they adopted the marijuana laws,
Right.
they do have a very high homeless population,
Sure.
which has started to develop over there because people are migrating from every corner of the country to go there without any source of income or anything.
Right. Right.
They're just coming from everywhere.
Mhm.
And he says you'll see a lot of youth, 20s, 30s, just living in parks, smoking weed, and that's
I
it.
believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's not, to me, that is not enough to say, oh, we got to keep it outlawed.
No, and that's not what he was saying. He was just saying they were the first state, so people gravitated
Absolutely,
there. That's
absolutely.
all that was.
Now another thing is, I think they're driving while intoxicated because of marijuana.
Mhm.
And they're like, I've seen it in the city, that I work. I've rolled up on people that were asleep at red lights simply because they smoked some really good marijuana.
It's like, knock, knock, motherfucker.
Oh yeah. That's happened numerous times.
My
You
And
know.
what do you do? You arrest them on the spot?
Hey, sometimes we've had to, sometimes just like with alcohol, depending on the situation and this and that, we may use discretion and
So
have some.
alcohol's not a hard line. Is that what you're telling me?
Not every time. I mean, a lot of times we do take people to jail for DUI if they're drinking and driving. A lot of times,
No, but if and I'm not trying to skate, and I would never do this, of course. But if I had a beer
Mhm.
in the car, but I wasn't obviously intoxicated.
But that's an open container.
Yeah,
Now
that's-
you're
that's a
adding.
ticket.
Oh,
now-
I see.
Yeah, you're
that's a
adding.
ticket. And think about it. You got a marijuana blunt that maybe was previously smoked in your vehicle. Now you're taking them to jail for misdemeanor possession of marijuana. Should that not be an open container ticket? Should it not? I think it probably should,
Mhm.
because it's just a little thing of weed in your vehicle. It's not hindering your driving. You're breaking the law by having that there. Yes. All right. So let's write you a ticket. So
open container is a ticket
yes.
only.
Yes.
You let me go,
Yes.
or somebody go.
Now, if you're drunk and you got these open containers and stuff, sometimes we'll use that as evidence.
Yeah, now let me-
especially if you hurt somebody in an accident.
No,
me-
I just
let me-
meant riding down the road,
Yeah.
and I had a
No,
half
see,
a
it depends
beer.
on the situation, but
Yeah.
no, that's a ticket all day long.
Yeah. Now, let me back it up and let me clarify what I think. If that thing's open, right, you got half a beer in there, but say you had not been drinking that, say that was from the night before, that's a ticket
Mhm.
because he can prove through field sobriety or breathalyzer you're not drunk, but you still got a ticket for an open container. And I've heard that that's a huge mistake that a lot of people make.
Yeah.
Is they'll leave an old beer can
Oh,
in
they
their
do it all the time.
car or do
I'll say
something
it all
like
the time.
that.
Half open, whatever,
But
in there.
from 2 days ago or
Sure.
whatever.
But and I've always used discretion on that. I've poured out a lot. I've made people get them call themselves rides. Sometimes I would tow their
happened to-
vehicle,
that happened
ride
to
them
Bud.
tickets, take them to jail, just depending on what's going on.
That,
But it's that's where the discretion comes in the totality of the situation.
So I guess my question is this: is that so you ride up on a car, you smell weed, and you smell weed, but you don't find seeds, you don't see anything.
Mm-mm.
Is that something to?
that's probable cause, right?
Mhm.
Okay, it may be probable cause, but you smell it on them, but you don't see anything.
Yeah.
Is that still
Right.
let them
If-
go
well,
or ticket?
No, it is. I smell it on your clothes because maybe you were at somebody's house and they were smoking, but you didn't. And so that's probable cause to get you out, search your vehicle, search you.
But is there a test for weed smoking? Oh, just like
I'm
alcohol?
so glad
There-
you asked that question.
There is, but it's not perfected in my
Okay.
sense. There's some things that we could do a little bit better in my humble opinion. It's John's opinion.
Yeah.
but as a drug recognition expert and have certifications, there's things I can do. There's tests there's certain tests. There's like a Romberg sway test. There's
This test here.
yeah,
Follow my pen?
there's
One of
yeah,
those?
there's always a nystagmus test. I can do an internal clock test, and there's different things I can do with that, making you close your eyes, count to 30, see how fast you count to 30, see
Hey,
where your time is in your
let-
head.
And I gotta say this quickly, dude. It's completely unfair for you to ask me to do the alphabet backwards.
I
Who
can't
can
do that.
That's what I'm telling.
That's
Who
funny.
Does that?
That's funny
That's
you mention that.
horseshit.
We were talking about that the other day with just some friends, and I had a friend. I actually have a friend who can do that fast. I can't do it. I need a piece of paper.
No, exact. That is an
I-
unfair request.
but
Yeah,
let-
I can't do it.
Let me hit this because this is fresh on my mind because you said the testing and he had a great question. Is there field testing now? And you may or may not remember this. There's a jackass police officer, and I will call him a jackass police officer if I saw him to his face in Georgia. That actually I think he finally got fired, but he went through one of those training deals, right? And he was just fucking hammering people. Oh, you've been on weed. I've been through training. I can tell by this and this and this. You've been on weed. Well, he finally fucked up. Okay. And there was this little college girl. She was about 20, 21 years old, max. And it showed on the little thing that I was watching because it showed her the
Right.
cam footage and stuff like that. He took her to fucking jail because he said she was smoking weed. Not only was she not smoking weed, this little girl had never smoked weed and was like, she was the wrong fucking one, right?
To mess with, yeah.
And to mess with. And she's like, and of course, crying and everything.
Right.
She's like, whatever. And he had gotten almost like that other dickhead about the DUI stuff.
Right.
This guy had gotten all these kind of accolades from his city, like, all these little awards and stuff, and he'd done this. And I may be wrong, but it overturned a lot of the stuff that he had done
Yeah.
because they proved
But
that,
it's too late at that point. You
Right,
think
right,
about
right.
Oh, yeah, I
jobs lost.
oh yeah, because
But
figured out he was full of shit.
Yeah, but think about this: as a police officer, you need to have great discretion in doing that because the only way that you're really going, like when there's a DUI and there's alcohol, you go back to the station and you have to do a blood alcohol test, right?
Mhm.
On the portable, you breathe into it. If you fail to do that and you refuse to do that, then it goes back into the officer's testimony, any evidence that we collected on scene, and maybe even video evidence of how you were driving,
Right.
swerving. And there's a lot of things that we bring together to build the case that you were driving under the influence with alcohol. Now, if it's with marijuana, we do not have a breathalyzer for marijuana.
Right.
There's nothing.
Well,
It's just our testimony and the evidence on scene,
well when
what we see scientifically or whatever. But none of that is exactly accurate unless, now let's say that you wrecked and killed somebody, and now this is a felony, and we think we're suspected because
But
of
you can do
marijuana.
a blood test.
that's what
Exactly. We can
Yeah.
get a warrant
that's
for your blood
see
test.
that's what that girl did when her dad got her out of jail the next morning.
Yeah.
Obviously pissed the fuck off.
Yeah.
That he took her and had her drug tested with a urinalysis and a blood thing
Mhm.
that day, the day of,
Mhm.
and got it recorded. And that was his. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
their
I mean, it comes out
thing.
clean. I mean, yeah.
And they just fucking hammered this
And
guy.
that's why the officers need to be really mindful of what they're doing with that,
Yeah.
and really have a strong case, as strong as they can, if it was just suspected, if I just suspected it, or had suspicion of it, but there's not all these other circumstances going on, you're driving, you can pass the field sobriety test, or your driving wasn't that bad. There's no way, that I would be taking somebody.
Well,
to jail
I'm
for
a
that.
and I know I sound a little rough on cops in my last couple of comments. I've know some great cops, and I think they're my grandfather. He was a law officer. The police academy in Nashville's named after him,
Right.
and
Oh,
so
that's cool.
I've had an uncle that passed away in the line of duty. Shot in a domestic, shot in the back.
Oh man.
Yeah, just horrible shit. So I totally respect law enforcement.
Mhm.
But like in any profession, there's good ones and bad ones. And I really hate that the bad ones get the attention.
Oh yeah, they always
And
do.
I just, and it's like, what the fuck?
I will tell y'all something, man. This, and even after all these years doing this stuff and knowing all these things, I'm recalling. I'll remember calls and different violent encounters, different things that happen, and then I'll forget them. I'll purposely forget them, you know. But every day I get emails with our daily activities. I won't say too much, but I get to look at them. What each shift does, each 8-hour shift, I review them. Sometimes I'll get emails on things that happen that I have to do certain things with to document and send places and stuff. And I'll look at what these individual officers do, what they encounter, what they're facing. And if I know, talking to you guys, you know, you can figure it out, you know, if you don't know. But like a lot of people it never crosses their minds because they don't really think about it. They don't know what these dudes encounter every single day. If I showed you, if you looked at it, it's mind blowing.
Right.
It's mind blowing.
So I want to make a comment first. So I'll never forget this. About 18 months ago, I interviewed a girl to come work for me, and she was a prison guard at one of the big prisons in the state. And she said, and it's happened several times. Once was a woman, and then again with a guy. And they both said the same thing. And I asked them, I said, why do you want to get out of that? Because, you know, there were 10, 12, 15 years in it. Hang on. And they said, Dave, I'm telling you, they are straight savages behind those walls. She says, if those walls come down, you don't realize the people that are in there.
Oh my goodness.
And
yes.
she...
Yeah, we could probably do hours on that alone.
Oh, it was... Oh, listen. So that interview went on. It should have been 20 minutes, and we talked for well over an hour. And she was telling me stories, and it was mind blowing. And she says the guards are paid too low, and that guards are pouring out of that profession like crazy.
Absolutely.
Because the risk versus the reward is so small. It's incredible. She goes, I got to get out. She goes, I will gladly do what you do, you know, trade you. She says, it's not worth it. She goes, I'm too old, the pay's too little, and the violence and the risk to my life is too great. She says the average citizen does not realize the type of people that are behind those walls.
That is well said right there. What you said is exactly how I feel about that. I'll be a police officer. I'll be a SWAT dude. I'll go do this stuff. There's no way I would ever be a corrections officer. No way. I'm not going to no building and babysitting a bunch of sick psycho adults that will just assume kill you.
And you got nothing.
I don't even have no firearm, just my hand tactics against 20, 30, 40, 50 people.
In a common area. Yeah, no shit.
Oh, the stories they told me were astonishing.
Yeah.
And it's things that you just would never think about.
Nope. That's not for me.
Because we're not exposed to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I give kudos and props to those guys, because those men and women that do that, they need to be tough. I've met some of them, and they do train some of those guys pretty well with different things, and they should, because look what they're having to face.
Yeah,
sure.
That's true hands-on.
Oh yeah,
situation.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But
so let me ask you this, and this was, and I didn't mean to get off track with that last comment, but this might seem like a silly question, but do you find it? You've been 14 years in, right?
mm-hmm.
Do you find it more difficult dealing with the millennials, or is it all one and the same? Or do you find some of the younger people to be a different animal, if you will?
They're definitely a different animal. I mean, they just have different mindsets. They're growing up with the internet and social media, and they're educating themselves. It's interesting, but some will weave through the nonsense of social media and the garbage that's out there and educate themselves in a lot of truthful matters. But the vast majority have educated themselves, which is easy to do.
With the propaganda.
Yeah, and if you took away all the battles that we've talked about with good and evil and everything else, I think our number one battle that our society is facing is the information battle. the
Right.
battle of what is actually true,
Mm-hmm.
propaganda versus truth in fact. And one thing that's helped me over the years, and without getting into the religious side or the political side, conservative versus liberal versus libertarian, religious versus atheist or agnostic. But one of the things I think has guided me to be more spiritual or empathetic and more knowledgeable about everything is that I started studying the rules of logic, and what really critical thinking means, and what it means to be reasonable, and how to be reasonable and let other reasonable people see that you're being reasonable. How to, if you're going to make, I like the saying too, that if you're going to make an extraordinary claim, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. It's cool to.
That's a fair statement.
It's a cool thing to want to believe or have assumptions about things. I think this may have happened a long time ago or whatever else, but we can't make that dogma. We can't make that fact because extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. But we need to use that in the religious setting too. And most religious people do not.
Right.
That's where a lot of my religious friends, Christian, Muslim, and whatnot, they kind of get angry with me, a little bit, or they get frustrated with me. Some of them might get angry with me, but, and it's because I don't necessarily, I used to, I grew up in those, I'm not afraid to say it, I grew up in the churches of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was a preacher.
Right.
I taught.
I knew there was something wrong with you. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
But
Preachers' kids are always fucked up. I'm just saying.
Yeah. You know how many times I get that, dude?
I know. We
get
just
that
like
so-
it's just an easy, fun jab.
It's fun. I will say this: I do not regret knowing and teaching the things I used to know about the Bible. I used to be able to quote scriptures and connect the Old Testament, New Testament scriptures for the dogma and the legalism and the legalistic stuff that the Churches of Christ and similar churches like the Baptists and so forth teach. There's differences, of course, but like I used to teach that at a college age class, and to be honest with you, I taught myself out of it.
So let me say this. So you didn't answer the question, and that's okay because a non-answer is an answer. In my word, about the millennials.
I almost
About
forgot.
the millennials. The millennials.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot the
No,
question.
I wasn't
too.
going to let him off the hook on
Okay.
that.
Well, to answer that question, it is yes. There are differences, and
Are they more difficult?
they can be because they're actually kind of spoiled.
Entitled.
Yeah, and we've noticed. I'm actually applying it not just on traffic stops or calls and stuff. I'm thinking about when we hire millennials.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And it's like, really, they don't have some of the life experience because I think of times being changed. They haven't went through some of the things that I would say, that we've all went through.
They hadn't had their nuts kicked around their shoulder
Yeah.
blades.
I mean,
Yeah.
listen. Well, I mean, there are certain things that we ask them before we hire them. When I'll just say, we'll ask them, are you comfortable going hands-on? Have you ever been in a fight? Can you handle if somebody tries to fight you? Because those are reasonable things that we need to ask our new hires because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So you would rather hire a guy that's been in a street fight than not in a street fight?
I would say yes on the surface, but it would have to be, something moral and ethical, of course.
Yeah.
Sure.
Why
A street
would you?
fight.
No, I want to hear his answer.
Yeah.
Because professionally, I couldn't go to a job interview and they asked me, "Have you ever been in a street fight?"
Yeah.
Of course, I'd have to say no.
But you're talking about, you're see, that's a good point because we're exchanging this as a law enforcement officer, a civilian, and you're thinking about it. Is that a proper thing for me to ask those guys? I would say yes, as long as it's not immoral or unethical to be in a street fight, because you may not have started it. If you didn't start that street fight and you had to have a self-defense situation where somebody punched you at school or you were walking home from school and somebody jumped you, and you can say, yes, sir, sergeant or whatever, I was in a fight because I got jumped at school.
Uh-huh.
And well, how did you do? And I did well, defending myself, defending my girlfriend.
Smashed
I
heads.
went, yeah, and I went home. I'd be like, that's a guy that I know that if somebody puts hands on him. Now, if we get a millennial and they're saying, no, I've never been in a fight. No, I don't know what I would do. And now we have to train that person. And are they trainable?
Right.
Yeah, because I was going to say, was there not a situation? God, dog, man, my head just is full of bullshit information. But there was a situation where a young officer froze under. It made news. He froze under situations and got fired the next day because his partner had to handle it all on his own. And when they were doing the press conference,
That's happened a bunch of times.
yeah, and the chief of police or whoever, whatever the highest ranking guy is like, yeah, unfortunately we had to let him go because in a situation it is his job to back up physically his
Right.
because the
Right.
kid froze and he was a young guy. I guess he was early 20s. And he
Conduct
just
unbecoming.
Yeah.
It could be. There's several things on my mind. I can't think of it right now. But we in our SOP, in our policies, and so forth, we have things that you have to adhere to,
Mhm.
and backing each other up. Conducting yourself professionally, safety. All of those things come into consideration and if you have an officer standing there not helping, causing another officer his
I mean, that's just neglect.
that's
Yeah,
that's neglect. Yeah,
Jesus.
it's incredibly
We're going to have more
unsafe.
words and when we get back to the station.
Exactly. I've seen some things happen with that, and the police department has ways to deal with that.
Right.
Trust me.
Right.
So let me ask you. So when I knew you were coming in, the number one question I had for you, and I wrote it at the very top of my list that I've been dying to get to, is so this was a while ago, but still it hangs on the front of my mind. I just cannot get over this. It was either Portland or Seattle. I think it was Seattle, where they seemed to really give a hard pushback and almost to the point of stop funding their ICE program up there. I don't know if you've heard of that, but where are you on that? And I could probably answer it for you. But I mean, what is the politics? What's the reasoning? And what's the feeling with the police force on that?
We're going to touch on several things with this, and I want to know your opinion on this myself. So, my worldview is, I believe, and you're going to understand the connection to this when I get to it. My worldview is, I believe that we should all love one another, all be able to live together without borders, and get along, and so forth. To me, empathy, love is my religion, and we are all humans. There's no such thing as race. There should be no such thing as even countries. But individually, we should all feel that way about one another. But as long as we have whatever 6.5 billion people on the planet, whatever it is, I can't remember now, is it billion or is it more than that?
Close to that.
Yeah. So as long as we have that amount of people, we are going to have countries.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as we have countries, we're going to have assets, things that we have to protect, and civility, order, law, all these things come into play. So if we're going to have order, law to protect our assets and civility, we're going to have borders. We're going to have an immigration policy. And it needs to be clear, concise. There needs to be clear paths, and it needs to be obtainable. And in the past, I think a lot of the frustration was immigration wasn't quite easily obtainable. And it doesn't have to be easy. It just has to be able to be done. It costs money and everything else. So these cities and these states that have sanctuary cities and so forth, and I'll tell you right now, the Birmingham mayor declared Birmingham as a sanctuary city.
I did not know that.
We're going to embrace the illegal immigrants and stuff. And so
And I like the guy. That's what really threw me off. I was like, what the fuck,
There are
man?
things about him I do like too, and there's things about him that I do not like, and
That's human nature, right?
Sadly, that's one of the things I disagree with, because we can't just open our borders and let everybody in to take all of our assets. I would love to embrace lots of people.
Let me ask this more direct question, and I'm gonna ask this direct question, and this will be kind of a hot poker because this happened in your municipality. It's been a few years back. A friend of mine I can't even say the road because everybody know what I'm talking about. In your municipality, got rear-ended,
Mm-hmm.
okay, by a young Hispanic girl,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a wreck,
Mm-hmm.
and it was on a main thoroughfare. So of course he gets out. It wasn't like a major. We tore everything to shits and giggles, but she hit him. They get out and they're talking. Of course, she goes straight to I don't speak English, and he's sitting there waiting. Of course, he calls with cell phone. Law enforcement. Law enforcement rolls up, and she doesn't have any form of ID.
Right.
Okay, and she starts hitting the guy in Spanish. The law enforcement guy knew, I guess, a little or enough, whatever. Next thing you know, he lets her go.
Mm-hmm.
And basically tells the guy,
You're on the hook.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
I've seen it.
and so my thing is this: if I hit you, right, and I go, I don't have ID, what would you say to me? You'd be like, we're fixing to figure some shit out.
I'm glad you guys get it, because the vast majority of people out here is like, cops are picking on illegals or illegal, and I call them illegals because that's what they are. They're illegal immigrants. They have broken the law to get here. But the thing is that they don't have a driver's license. If you don't have a driver's license, you can't get insurance typically. I mean, you can put insurance on a vehicle, but you're supposed to have proper driver's license to drive it. So it's kind of crazy. But like most of the illegal immigrants that we come across, and I'm not talking about a specific ethnic group. Illegal immigrants, there's all type of ethnic groups
Sure,
of
sure.
illegals in the city where I'm at, or in all cities. So the vast majority of them do not have driver's license and do not have insurance or whatever. So when they hit and everything, and a police officer will typically go, what's your name? What's your date of birth? Scratch it down. What are you going to do if you're a legal immigrant and you have no way to ID yourself?
But what's the difference between me as a legal immigrant going to you going, Officer John, I don't have a driver's license and my name is Bobby Joe Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we know from your tag, and we know from other ways, if you don't come up on file, then there's ways for us to investigate to figure out who you are.
Okay, well, what about?
We try to figure out who they are, and if you can't and everything, you just take down what they are, what they say. That's why we need ways to identify, people on scene, maybe fingerprints.
But I'm just saying, just say I have no, I do have tattoos, but say I had no tattoo. I'm driving a vehicle that come back to a girl's
name. We do
name.
get guys like that sometimes that we can't hardly figure out who they are.
Yeah, and I'm Bobby Joe Smith, and where you live? Well, I live at, and I just fucking spout out some address or whatever I may or may not know. But
here's the thing, that does happen. We get your citizens that does have a social security number, that does have some form of ID in the past, and they'll give us a false name. It's called giving false information to an officer. That's an actual misdemeanor charge.
Right.
It's actually a felony if you give false information to an officer and you have a warrant. I'm trying to remember how this works. And you have a warrant, or then a lot of them have what they call, they're fugitives from justice because they have a warrant out of state and now they're giving false information. But regardless, if we get somebody and I can't figure you out, then I usually take your information down. If I figure out who you are later on, I'm signing a warrant for giving false information. If I figure out who you are right then and there, and you've scratched down a fake name and date of birth, I'm taking you to jail right then and there. Yeah. But the problem is with illegals is that a lot of times they're not on file.
Sure. But I'm just saying, say I wasn't on file. You don't have my picture. You're not taking my photo at the scene, so to speak.
Right.
But it seems to me, and this is my bias, it seems to me as a as a white male that you would take more energy on if you call bullshit on the fact if I say I'm just whatever,
Of course.
to whereas do you feel like you guys have to take a half a step back if you feel like somebody's illegal, whether illegal Asian, illegal Hispanic, illegal whatever?
Right.
Do you feel like
Because
the
yes.
pressure?
Yeah, sort of, because it's like if they're not on file, they're not on file.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If you're on file and I pretty much know you're in your 30s or whatever, and you've had to have some form of ID or something. You've got a social. You're on file somewhere, and if I can't find you, then I'm usually sitting there until I do find you.
Mhm.
But is it possible that you're not on file for whatever reason, and there are some things that would cause you not to be on file, and then we get your name, what you give us, and send you on your way. And I have went back and signed warrants on people for lying to me for that. But the illegals, what we'll do is take their name, date of birth, write them tickets. They go about their way. Now,
They
if they
disappear.
if they gave us a fake name and fake date of birth, what that does is start racking up. If they use it again, it'll we can catch that name and date of birth and try to figure out if that's who they gave that same information to. If we arrest them, if we arrest an illegal immigrant,
Well, now you got a picture in a print.
yeah, and it's under like John Doe. But then if they get arrested again and they give another name, then they might have their fingerprints will show all the names and date of birth that they've given under the arrest. I've arrested people and they've been arrested 20 times and gave 20 different. Yes, I'm serious.
That's crazy.
Oh, I'm serious.
So let me say this. So I had a house in Southside, and there was a dangerous intersection, literally the block behind me.
Mhm.
And so one way had a stop sign, and the other way was just free flowing. Okay, it was very, very dangerous. Accidents all the time. A Hispanic guy clips this girl, college girl, from the back. Police come, as always, the neighbors come out, make sure everybody's okay. And they let everybody go. And I asked the officer, I said, hey, man, I said, that guy is clearly here illegally. And he turned to me and he said, that guy don't have a pot to piss in. And he gave no ID, no nothing. He goes, what do you want me to do? He goes, if she sues him, he doesn't have anything. He goes, the car is totaled.
Yeah.
It's done. It's game over. What more can I do? And I was like, Jesus Christ, dude.
No, he's actually sort of right because in an accident is a civil matter. If there's a criminal matter, and it should be, you would think being illegally here is a criminal matter,
Right.
And we should be able to take people on solely that, but we can't. It has to be now. Immigration Custom Enforcement can, but you got to think about it. Can they do as many? Like, look at all the amount of illegal immigrants that's here.
Yeah, it's just
it is
a mass
not
numbers.
It is not possible to do that until they secure the border completely, and then they can start figuring out what they're going to do with illegals here. Maybe give the ones that's here working and not causing problems a path to citizenship. That maybe it's a 10-year path, and they have to pay a certain amount of money and have to go through classes and learn the language or whatever it is. But and then the ones that commit crimes. Now, the ones that commit crimes now, certain crimes, different things, domestic DUIs, felonies for sure, Immigration Custom Enforcement can come get them.
But can they get them prior to committing a crime?
No. Well, Immigration Custom Enforcement can, I believe, in some instances, there has to be other things going on because you can't get all of them.
Yeah,
Because my question is this, because everybody knows that there is a section, or at least used to be, over in Hoover,
Oh, yeah.
where they would accumulate, and then you could in
Well-
a construction, you could pick them up,
Yeah.
and then you can take them to work. And the question was always, why are we allowing this to continue not addressed?
Well, I've often said that too, but I know why, because there's no resource. There's not enough resources to deal with that. It has to be done at the border first.
And it has to, and I think my version of an answer on that, my non law enforcement answer is, it has to become such a burden on the citizens of that community to to where it becomes a problem.
But it was a
before-
burden. They shut
Yeah.
down that apartment
Sure.
Yeah, they
complex at
did.
that corner.
Yeah, they
There
did.
are burdens on every aspect of our
Right.
economics.
So I will not accept that answer.
But what I'm
at
saying,
all.
but once it got to that point, that's when they come in and shut that stuff down. But unfortunately, it has to build until
Yeah.
it has to build to that point before.
There is a study that was out. I saw it. I didn't actually sift through it real well, but it was the amount of the $1 billion drain that is put on our welfare system of all sorts is enough to pay for the wall
Oh, sure. Oh, I don't doubt that.
over and over.
Absolutely.
So, and let me tell you, I'll tell you a funny little thing. So, I do have some illegal immigrants that I consider them friends, because they do work, they do stay out of trouble, they're humans, they're good people. They did break the law getting here, and they should be ultimately deported if there's not a path to citizenship ultimately made. And they do know that. A couple of them overstayed their work visas. A couple of them came here completely illegally. I do have one in particular who's a highly intelligent guy. He came over here on a work visa. He overstayed it for a little bit, went back to his home country, renewed his work visa, came back over here, got enrolled into a school, into college, and is able to take his work visa and his college and get a driver's license. And I was like, kudos for you. He did everything correctly.
Like
Now
you're
he can be identified. This is an incredible, awesome dude, too.
Yeah.
Just a cool dude. Very, very respects America, loves America, respects the law. So he knew he had overstayed his work visa. He went back to his home country, squared everything away, come back over here correctly, and did it right. I mean, I was just like, that is the way it's supposed to be done.
And I appreciate that. But listen, I have to say this, and I think Chris knows. He's seen me gnawing at the bit here.
He's like,
So my mother came to this country from Cuba. Okay,
Right.
so she came just before Fidel came into power. So I'm going years
Oh,
ago.
wow.
So her and her parents come over. They come over and they did it in a legal manner.
Right.
Went through the whole process. And so that's the thing I get from people all the time. They go, Dave, your mother came here to this country to have a better life. Why are you so hard on illegals? And it's not a matter of being hard. It's a matter of doing things right.
Right.
If
I
the
agree.
three of us lived in another country,
Mhm.
okay, none of us is more entitled than another one to come to America.
Absolutely.
We all have to do it, and not one of us should be able or entitled to jump ahead of the other one.
Absolutely.
Go through the process, and that's all I've ever said.
Well, it's part of civility and respect and keeping things orderly in our country so we can identify people when there are crimes committed, so we can protect one another and everything else. It has nothing to do with hating an immigrant trying to come over here.
Absolutely not.
We love the human being. My thinking is I consider myself a little bit of a humanist.
Mhm.
And in that humanist viewpoint, I want our love for one another, our civility, our mindset as far as our laws go, that we can change our laws with new information that comes in to better suit the will of the people. I want that to spread worldwide. And eventually, I wouldn't mind a worldwide setting where we all get along and we can flow in between the borders with ease and this and that. But we don't have that yet. We're not there yet. We are many, years and years from ever being there. And so we have to have borders. We have to have laws. We have to have ways to control our assets and so forth, or we're going to be overran and we're not going to have anything. And that's part of why I believe that this county that we live in doesn't keep criminals locked up that much in our prison systems in the state as well, because they're overran with people breaking laws for minor crimes like we talked about earlier, for illegals being in there sometimes, being locked up for things they should have been deported for illegals coming back. I know an illegal immigrant that came back 7 times. In a matter of just a couple years,
It's crazy.
So it's ridiculous. It causes anarchy. There's just not a better word for it.
There's a lack of organization, is what it is, and it's just people are allowed to just, if you allow them to do whatever,
Right.
there's no organization, there's no rhyme, no reason, and I'm just telling you that I feel for that whole situation down at the border. There has to be rule, law, order, a process to get people in.
Right.
Because if you just open it up,
We definitely need to figure it out.
you're getting anything and everything.
Let me tell you another little thing. This is what I was originally going to tell you. So I have a buddy who's a Hispanic. He was born here, and he owns a Hispanic grocery store. Super nice guy, young guy, and when President Trump was going through the process of getting the nomination for the election, of course, a lot of my Hispanic friends and so forth were worried and scared about deportation and all the rhetoric. They would get newspapers from Mexico that was brought in, and put in the store, and it was just anti-Trump propaganda and just talking about how he hated, Mexico and the Latin nations and Hispanics and so forth. Well, he come out and we were, talking, sitting on a bench outside where my work vehicle was, and he goes, "I just don't know, man. I just don't agree with him. I don't agree with him." And I was like, "You're pretty conservative." I said, "You're more conservative than I am." I said, "Let's take a test." So we got on a website. There's a website called isidewith.com. And it has numerous questions, probably 60, 70 questions. And you can go in there on each question, and each question can go in depth more.
Mm-hmm.
So each question, you can ask more questions for that topic. So we spent 2.5, 3 hours on there going through that list and answering those questions, because I'd already done it. I knew where I stood and my worldviews and so forth. And so it'll line you up with the major characters, in our political system: Trump, Hillary, the libertarian candidates, and so forth. And I was, I'm not afraid to say, I was like in the low 80s on the Trump side.
Right.
And then I was kind of a futurist, centrist, futurist, modern, this and that. I'm not going to get into all that. But it was, he sided like 96% Trump. And I was just like, I told you, dude. I told you. And he has to answer questions about the border and stuff, too.
Right,
so he
right.
was, he had answered all those things.
I bet he was like, damn.
It was hilarious.
But the whole thing goes back to what I said very, very early on, is that it all goes back to accountability. Are you accountable for your own actions?
Sure.
Yes.
Irregardless of why you do things,
Right, true.
you elect to come here, or you elect to go through the process or not.
I will say this. There are numerous illegal immigrants that don't give a crap about this country, that does not care about our laws. They get drunk on the weekends. They fight. They sell drugs. I've
gotta
met
see the way they
cartel
park.
guys. I've met, but on the flip side of it, I know hundreds of illegal immigrants that love this country, that want to be citizens. They just came here illegally.
I probably know more than you because of the circles that I've been raised in.
You may have.
And there's no doubt about it. There's wonderful people, but
Right.
there's still a process.
I know it. I agree 100%. And they know that too. They do. And they struggle with it. I know some that struggle with it. But it's just it's a tough thing, but it all starts. We all can agree. We have got to seal it up, or it's never going to get better.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So,
Well, man, I tell you what, I feel like I've gone through cop school. I'm telling you, that was a lot of great information. I think it'd probably be a good time to start rounding it out. But everybody needs to check out our social medias. Go to our Instagram page, our Facebook page, our Twitter page. Obviously our website, and pick out past episodes, stay up to date. Please subscribe to our iTunes and stuff like that. We're going to hit you with the 2-1 on the way out. Okay, we'll get old John, Mr. Makovica talking, and then we'll finish out on our stuff. John, I appreciate you being on. We didn't
Thanks
even
for having me.
we could probably do another 2 on the other stuff that we like to talk about.
We didn't get into the ancient history, science, and martial arts.
Yeah, we didn't even get to that, man.
I had notes on that in case you wanted to touch on it, but next time.
But we
sure.
will definitely have you back on board.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
This is the Furlough Podcast, brought to you by All American Ford in Aniana, Alabama. Stop by and see John Makovica and his
She does a
team
good job.
today.
She does a good job. She does a good job.
Awesome.
Is that